Can you hear me? Because it said it's resuming. Hello? Hello? I can hear. And we have sound. Hello? And we have sound. Because you should be able to hear me now.
But mine's not coming back on.
Oh, it's going.
Oh, hold on. Something's happening.
I'm on. Go out and come back into yours. Guys.
Oh, wait. Yes.
Okay, guys. We are so sorry. Erica, I see you just made a comment. We are up and running and we have sound now. That's the thing about doing live things, is that we have technical difficulties and we have to work through them, but we thank you guys for hanging out with us and being patient with us. And I am just going to drop a little note.
Oh, that's what I'm doing.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll let you do that. And then
it just got dropped.
Okay, cool. All righty. So we are back. And
since they didn't hear anything we said,
hi, everyone.
Here we go. Take two. This is take two, people. Take two.
Maybe three or four.
We don't know. It's Friday night.
We are Wendy
and Dr. Tanya Featherston.
And we are the founders of the Lesbian Couples Club. And we are here with our rainbow letter. We said a lot of stuff before, but we're just going to go ahead and get this letter started.
Yes, since we are late. So we're going to read the letter first, and then we'll start to have a conversation about it.
Oh, Erica, yes, we're back. She texted me.
Oh, people trying to see if we're back. We're back, everybody. Come back. Come back. It's okay.
Yes.
Let me see.
I'm telling her we're back with sound. All right, so we're back with sound. Woo! Okay, so we're going to read the letter. Now I have to go to the letter, but just give a little.
Okay, so while she's getting the letter together, we started the rainbow letter last year. We only did it once. And then we decided to bring it back this year and do it for a complete year. So this will be our first one for 2017, but we will do them twice a month now because we had such a huge response from people wanting to send in letters and get feedback on different topics. So we had a tremendous amount of feedback and support with the call that we put out to everybody to send in a letter. What we did was there were several that were similar to each other, so we tried to choose one this time that sort of resonated with several people. So we will do the rainbow letter twice a month. We will do it on the first and third Friday of the month at 7 o'clock. And next time we won't have technical difficulties, I hope.
Hopefully.
So, well, we'll see. So let's read the letter and then we'll have a dialogue. And make sure if you have comments, thoughts, whatever, we want this to be a dialogue and not a monologue. So just, talk to us in the chat box.
All right. So the letter is, Dear Dr. Tanya and Wendy, my partner and I have been together for 3 years. And lately it seems that all we do is argue. We fight about everything. Sometimes it's big things like spending money, and then sometimes little things like who's going to do the dishes. We love each other, but I'm tired of arguing. Should we just go our separate ways? Help.
All right. Well, so arguing. It's common. It's something that's going to happen in any relationship.
Yeah.
So it's not one of those things. Wendy and I argue. We were just arguing right before this broadcast. To be honest with you, nothing major, but we were having a little disagreement before the broadcast. So don't roll your eyes at me. See, so having conflict and or disagreements in relationships it's just a natural course of a relationship.
Yeah, you're two people.
So, exactly.
And you're going with different personalities.
And really, any relationship where you don't ever disagree on anything, I might be a little concerned about. No two people really are that in sync with each other where you absolutely never disagree with each other about anything. So having disagreements is common. The thing that you have to be careful about is how often you're having those disagreements. If the disagreements and the arguments are now taking over the relationship, and that's all you're doing is arguing and disagreeing with each other. And just like the person who wrote the letter said, they argue about everything. They argue about everything from, big things to little things. So if it's gotten to the point where your disagreements are so frequent that you're just arguing about everything, then I think that's a different situation. And you definitely have to take time. The first thing I would say to this person who wrote in the letter is to really stop first and examine yourself. So I would say the first thing would be self-examination. And not to say none of this has to do with blame. And that's the one thing I want to make sure that people remember, to remove the word blame. That it's not your fault, it's not your partner's fault, but you really, in order to be able to sort of get to the heart of why you're having so many disagreements and why you're arguing so much, you have to first do some self-examination. And so what I mean by that is really stopping and asking yourself a couple of questions about your arguments. The first thing I would say is to ask yourself, how do the arguments start? Do they start randomly over, just sort of random things? Are they ongoing arguments? A lot of times, the reason why we're constantly bickering with each other is because there is some unresolved issue there. So if you leave issues unresolved, then yes, they're just going to keep spilling over, and you're going to, it's like, you take little breaks in between, but you're moving from one argument to the next.
Yeah, and then also I would add to check yourself. Check yourself to see if you had a bad day at work, if you're carrying over some residual stuff from work, or if you are just not feeling well. Sometimes, arguments pop up, jump up, start because you don't feel well, or and sometimes we just don't want to be bothered, and then we take it out on the person that's closest to us.
Right.
So
so that's the first thing, is to just sort of examine, again, how are the arguments taking place? The next thing that I would say that you ask yourself is, are you trying to have, or is either person trying to have a difficult conversation at the wrong time?
Right.
And I think that really causes big, huge blow-ups and arguments when, let's just give an example of, Wendy usually does the majority of the cooking. And so, our kind of arrangement or deal is, the person who cooks, and we pretty much share it now that I'm at home more. And so the sort of unwritten, I guess, agreement or unspoken agreement is that, if one person cooks, the other person does the dishes.
Right.
That's kind of how it works. You wouldn't really ask one person to do everything, or we wouldn't. And
we don't expect each other to.
Right. So that's kind of like the unspoken rule, is that the other person does the dishes. So example would be, if I'm upset about something else that's going on in our relationship, something that's much more important to me than those dishes. But, Wendy doesn't do the dishes on a day that I cook, and then I want to start arguing about the dishes. And so, you might say something like, oh, you didn't do the dishes. It was your turn to do the dishes. I always have to do the dishes. And so you have to be careful with when you choose to bring up certain subjects. Now, I might really want to talk about maybe something that happened between us 2 days ago or whatever, but I'm using this situation with the dishes to now bring this up. So in addition to the dishes, now that I've sort of picked this fight,
right?
Then in addition to the dishes, I'm going to bring up, well, you know, last week you said this to me, you know, and I don't understand why you said that to me. And so a lot of times that's what we end up doing, is that we really have an issue that we want to get resolved, but we use minor things to sort of express how our anger
and how
about those issues. So what I would say to the reader or to the writer is, to look at, you know, is there anything that you're sort of holding on to, any issue that you want to discuss with your partner? And if it is, then really think about when you want to have that discussion and find a time that's mutually positive for both you and your partner to really broach having that discussion, and to really think about what you want from this relationship first, and then what you want from the discussion that you're going to have with your partner about, even if it is having a discussion about to each other or the level of disagreement that you guys have. You can start that with a conversation, but first you need to know sort of what you want from that conversation and prepare yourself to have that conversation. So that would be the next thing that I would say is, you know, when you find yourself in a dialogue with your partner, and if you feel like you're losing control and your voice is starting to elevate, what's wrong?
Oh, no.
I thought something went wrong again.
No.
If you find that your voice is starting to elevate or you're sort of getting out of control, then stop the conversation. Because again, it's never going to go anywhere positive if you keep trying to have a conversation, even if your partner is starting to get to that place. If you notice that your partner is getting out of control, then, you know, you stop the conversation too, because it takes two people to argue.
So we have a question. It says, okay, so when is the right time to talk about a sensitive issue?
Okay. And that's a good question. Right. So if it's an issue that, say I have, it's something that I'm dealing with or holding on to, or something that I want to discuss with Wendy, then one, you kind of have to know your partner. So think about your partner and think about the time when really they're in sort of the best place, or they're in their best mood, in a happy space. When are they usually? So again, don't do it like right after work, because usually people are tired and they don't have the energy necessarily to give that kind of a conversation. Definitely don't do it when you've just had an argument or something tense is going on.
Right.
That's probably not the best time to do it.
And also, I wouldn't do it when we are laying in bed, maybe trying to be intimate, or after being intimate. I wouldn't broach the conversation then either.
No, so I definitely wouldn't do it during one of those times. So it has to be a time where again, you perceive your partner to be in a good space, in a happy place. You yourself are in a good space. One, I would say to do it when, you know, hopefully no one else is around, so that you have the time and the privacy. Don't do it at a time when you know that one of you, either one of or both of you, have something else that you're going to have to do within, you know, an hour's time or something like that, because you want to give yourself enough time to have the conversation. So those are like some of the ways that you can look at when is a good time. Again, during your downtime when you're not doing anything, that's usually probably the best time.
And I was going to say, create the time, create the space to have the conversation. So, you know, you want to broach a sensitive, you know, subject, then, you know, you could prepare your partner's, you know, favorite meal and sound like a setup, right?
Smooth it over, right. That does sound like a setup.
but prepare their favorite meal. I mean, because what you don't want is an argument. But so if you've taken the time and you prepared her favorite meal and you set the mood, you set the atmosphere for and you created that energy around a happy space. So then when they come in, they're really excited to see that, you know, you've taken some time to do some things for them. And, you know, you guys sit down and you have dinner, and maybe at dinner, you know, you can then, you know, approach the situation and
right,
you
and
know,
just
and not from a place of, you know, a hostile place. It's from a place of love and, you know, care and concern about your feelings and theirs.
right. And one of the things I think to remember, if you're the person that's bringing up the sensitive issue, is to know that whatever it is, it may not be resolved in that one conversation, in that one sitting. So, you know, you want to, in that conversation, you want to make sure that, you know, you guys are being respectful to each other, that you're both listening as much as possible, right? That you are sort of observing each other. And when I say observing, body language is a huge, you know, factor in a conversation.
Right.
So it will let you know, you can observe your partner's body language and really know whether the message is being received or not received, you know, very well. And that's one of the things I think, you know, between Wendy and I, there are times when if we're having a difficult conversation about something and I am watching her and I'm observing her and trying to be observant of myself too, there are times when I know that either one or the other of us is really not receiving. I know when I'm not really in the mindset to receive what she's saying to me. And, you know, we had a conversation about this, a few days ago?
Last week.
About, you know, her trying to have a conversation with me about something. And I was not really in the mindset to be able to receive what she was saying to me. And not that there was anything, actually, it was good information that she was giving to me. It was just the when. It was right before we were going to bed. We had actually fallen asleep watching a movie on the couch. And so we got up, it was probably like 2:00 in the morning, and we went to bed and we got into bed. And then she wanted to talk about, you know, this issue. And I'm thinking, it's 2:00 in the morning. I want to go back to sleep. It was late, y'all. I wanted to go back to sleep, and I just wasn't in a space to receive it because I was like, okay, why are we talking about this at like 2:00 in the morning when we're supposed to be asleep? So she talked about it anyway. And sometimes you do have to just, again, do more listening. And so I was listening. I won't say I was necessarily absorbing a ton of it, but I was listening. And then the following day, when I could really process
you came back.
What it was that she was saying, then I came back so that we could finish the conversation. And I was honest to say, look, at 2:00 in the morning, after we had already fallen asleep and woke back up again, I wasn't really receiving what you were saying. So that's maybe not the best
what
time
you said was, I wasn't listening to you. She said she wasn't listening, and I did a lot of talking, and it was. But
I tried to tell her
was good stuff.
That I wasn't going to be listening because it was 2:00 in the morning, but she wanted to have the conversation anyway. So that's the thing that we're saying, is that you have to find a time, like for her at that moment fit, and it was what she needed, but for me it didn't fit. So you really are, it's kind of a finessing and a really sort of you know, trying to have the conversation and figure out when it's a good time for both of you and not just one of you.
And it you know, you can't put it off. So
right,
it may not always be a good time, because it could be 2:00 in the morning, and that's the best time. Maybe, but you know, but you just can't continue to put it off, because then the conversation never takes place, and then you have other things that arise.
Right. And you have to know, again, just like I said earlier, that there may be multiple conversations in order to resolve whatever, you know, the issue is, or to really talk through whatever the sensitive issue is. So just know that, you know, you're not in it for just a one-time conversation, but it may be an ongoing thing. Let's see.
So we have another question coming in.
Okay.
Someone just said another question, and then now they're adding the question.
All right. Well, we'll see what the next question is.
And the next question.
And in the meantime, while Wendy's getting the next question, The other thing that I wanted to say is when it comes to arguing and disagreements, I wanted to make sure that I said to you that relationships go through stages. And there are several stages that your relationship will go through as it grows and develops and matures. And one of those stages is a power struggle stage. And most relationships, now some relationships, haven't progressed to that point yet, but most relationships do get to a point where you go through a power struggle phase. And in that phase of the relationship, you really are, sometimes you're really looking and almost sort of testing, if you will, your partner to see kind of how far you can go, how
many buttons you can push.
How many buttons you can push, whether that person has staying power, so there's a lot of things that will happen in the dynamics of a relationship when you're going through that power struggle phase. So if you're doing a lot of small arguing and that wasn't really sort of where you were earlier in your relationship or in the previous years of your relationship, it could be that you're in that power struggle phase. And the one thing that you have to know in order to sort of get yourself through that phase is that one, you just have to keep having a healthy respect for each other. And it is almost sort of a jockeying for position, if you will.
Marking your territory.
And so I guess so. And so,
alpha.
You just have to, stay your ground and make sure that, above all, that your partner is being respectful to you and that you're being respectful to your partner. And that you're really paying attention to the relationship so that you can know, again, long term, if this is a relationship that's going to make it long term, because you can sort of work your way through this power struggle and still come out on the other side.
Okay, so the next question it says, what do you do when your partner seems to be avoiding a conversation about the serious conversation? Every time you try to broach the subject, they don't want to talk about it.
And that can definitely be the case. Sometimes in relationships, you do have partners who will, that their way of coping and dealing with things is avoidance. So rather than, and I used to be like that. I so used to be that type of person where I didn't like conflict. And so anything that I thought might lead to conflict, I really didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to talk about it. And thankfully, that was me way before I met Wendy. But that was, who I was for a number of years. Everything was okay with me. It was like, all right, whatever you say. I wasn't going to really sort of challenge you in any kind of way because I just didn't like the conflict. Mm-hmm. So you do have a lot of people who are like that. So with a person like that, you have to be careful when you approach the conversation. But the one thing I will say is to try this. Let the partner or ask the partner to pick the time. So say if it's Wendy, what I would say to her is, we really need to talk about, I'm trying to think of an example of something that we might need to talk about.
Packing up the house.
Okay, so maybe she doesn't want to talk about it. So we really need to have a conversation, right, about packing up the house. And if I know this is something that Wendy is avoiding doing, then what I would say to her is, can you give me a time and a day when you want to talk about that? So put it on the other person. If that person is always the one that's avoiding, then don't you be the one to set the date and time, because of course they'll probably always have an issue with it, but they might take more ownership and responsibility for it if they set the date and time. But now here's the key. The key is not to let them go away and set a date and time whenever, because of course they won't ever set it.
Right.
So ask them right then and there on the spot, can you give me a date and time that's going to be good for you for us to have or continue this conversation?
And I don't think it should be too far out into the future either.
No, so definitely, within the next week, right, to give them an opportunity. So if they, but you want them, and just ask them, I really need you to commit to giving me a day and a time when we can, if this is important to me and I feel like it's important to our relationship, that we have this conversation. And so again, you've got to make sure when you approach that person, that your body language is one that's very calm and very inviting, that doesn't produce any anxiety, and that your words are words of invitation, again, because you're trying to get that person to be okay with starting that conversation, and knowing, and even if you say reassuring things to them, that kind of lets them know that, I don't want to argue about this. I really want us to have a healthy conversation about this.
And maybe even saying, that this has been, bothering me for some time, or, let them know how you feel about not having the conversation, how it makes you feel, what it, and that you really need to have it. So if they could give you a date, you would greatly appreciate it.
Right. And just, again, ask them to give you a commitment to a date and time, and see if that works. So let us know if that works for you. If not, we'll shoot you some other suggestions. All right. Anything else? Well, I'm trying to think. I want to make sure we got through. So the reader also asked the last question, should we just go our separate ways? So what I would say to this reader is, unless the disagreements and the arguments have gotten like physical in some sort of way, then definitely I think you need to think about your safety. If that's not the case, if they're just little small nitpicky types of arguments that just keep going on and on, then I would say no. I mean, I think that's one of the things that lesbians tend to do very quickly. Soon as there's any kind of disagreement, any kind of argument, anything that's not euphoria in a relationship, then we feel like, oh, this must be over, or oh, I need to just go my separate ways. So if you're trying to have a long-term relationship with someone, then you've got to learn to be able to weather these types of situations. And so, as a final thing to the person who wrote the letter, I would say not necessarily to call it quits at this point, but to really seek out some help before you decide that the relationship is over. So having a conversation with your partner and figuring out if that person is also open and willing to get some help from somebody, either, getting coaching, relationship coaching, to be able to have a third party help you work through whatever the difficult situation is, or helping you get to the bottom of why you keep having the repeated arguments over time. Lastly, there is a little sheet that I don't know if you saw the button at the bottom, but it says free download rules for fighting fair. So again, I don't necessarily know that I like the word fighting, so we might have to change that, but rules for how you can work your way through an argument or a disagreement in a positive way. And so it's a little list or tip sheet that we are offering as a free download. So you can definitely click on that and download it, and it'll give you some more tips, things that we don't have enough time to be able to cover in this particular rainbow letter, but to give you more support in doing that.
And then also for the couple who wrote in, they will receive a free coaching session, a free hour long coaching session to help them jumpstart their conflict resolution, and around arguing. And so what we also are doing for the for you guys tonight is offering a special coaching offer. It's a button at the bottom of the video, at the bottom of the video, where you can just click on and see the $99 coaching offer.
And it's a good introductory offer to get you started with coaching. I know one of the things with relationship coaching is sometimes people are a little apprehensive about it because they're not really sure what it is and how it works. So this $99 special, it's 3 short coaching sessions. So there are 3 30-minute coaching sessions to really give you a good idea and a good sense of what it is, of how it can help you. And basically in those sessions, what we do is we sit down with you. We will have a conversation around what you want to work on. We will provide you with, and it's different from this kind of a format gives you a general sense of, I have to keep everything general and sort of for all the people who are listening, but in the coaching sessions, we're speaking very specifically to your situation. And so I'm giving tools that are very specific to what you have told me in those coaching sessions for you to be able to use during the time in between each session to help you work on your relationship. So it is more than just a conversation, and that's what I want people to know, but there's actually work that you're given to do when you go home. There are exercises that you do with each other, and then when you come back, we build on that. So it definitely is, it's a little bit different from like typical therapy where you're just sitting having conversations, but we're actually giving you love work to do.
So if no one has any more questions, and I haven't gotten any more.
Okay. You want to talk about one other thing that I want you guys to know that we have coming up. If you like this hangout type of space, then in the past, for 2 years, we did a lesbian couples support circle. And we did that support circle locally in the Columbia, Maryland area. And one of the things that we got from couples a lot that were in other places was that they wish they could come and actually be a part of that.
Yes, can you bring it here?
Right.
We wish we had it here.
Because they were in other locations. And so what we're doing with it this year is we're actually going to take that exact same format and we're going to bring the lesbian couple support circle online. Yay. So it's going to be a private hangout where we will be there with how many? 5 other couples? A maximum of 5?
Yes.
Yes, a maximum of 5 other couples where we will actually do the same type of work where you can actually bring your issues to the table. We'll have a specific topic that we will cover every month, and it'll be a monthly support circle that we will do in an online format, and the mics won't be muted, so you will get a chance to actually talk, interact. It'll be very interactive, as if we're all sitting there in a room together, but you'll each be doing it from your own living room. So we're going to give you more information about that next 2 Fridays from now.
Next letter on
when we do on the 3rd Friday, when we do the next rainbow letter, because we will start that support circle up
in March.
Yep.
So with that being said, we do appreciate you guys taking some time to hang out with us and to chat with us. Keep the letters coming.
Yes, definitely.
Send your letters to thelesbiancouplesclub.com, or you can email askdrtanya@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. We love reading the letters. And we just really, really do appreciate you guys for rocking with us. So we will end this broadcast and hope that you guys have an awesome rest of your night and a great weekend on purpose. And we will see you on what's the 3rd Friday? I want to give a date.
Okay, let me see. The 3rd Friday, our next rainbow letter will be on February 17th.
So we will see you on
February 17th.
Oh, wait, that's my birthday weekend now.
We'll see you on February 17th. It's the 3rd Friday of the month. 1st and 3rd Friday.
We'll see you guys on the 17th. All right, guys. Bye-bye.
All right. Peace.